The internet didn't just whisper this time, it spiraled into full-blown panic mode. One cryptic post, one alleged leak tied to 50 Cent. And suddenly Jay-Z's name was being dragged into a shadowy narrative so disturbing that even longtime fans didn't know how to react. What started as subtle hints and inside jokes instantly morphed into something much darker, with timelines flooding over theories, symbols, and so-called connections. People swear they can't unsee anymore. According to viral speculation, once 50 Cent's words began circulating, everything changed. Old interviews resurfaced. Lyrics were reanalyzed. Award show moments people once ignored were suddenly paused, zoomed in, and slowed down. Fans began claiming there were patterns. Others insisted it was all coincidence taken too far. But the scariest part? The speed. Within hours, entire threads appeared accusing Jay-Z of being tied to secret rituals, hidden power circles, and things that were never meant to be discussed publicly. No proof, no confirmation. Just fragments, screenshots, and alleged insider whispers that felt too coordinated to ignore. Celebrities reacted with silence. Some posted vague warnings about energy and truth. Others deleted tweets without explanation. And right in the middle of it all sat Jay-Z, completely quiet, while the narrative around him grew more sinister by the minute. Is this just another internet conspiracy spinning out of control? Or did one leak crack open a door people were never supposed to look behind? Because if even half of what's being implied is true, this story isn't just messy, it's dangerous. Part 1 1200 Odes. The moment 50 Cent's name entered the conversation, the internet lost its balance. Not because he made a clear accusation, he didn't, but because of how he said what he said. A vague line, a half-joking tone, a caption that looked casual on the surface but felt deliberate underneath. And once people started replaying it, screenshotting it, and pairing it with old clips, a familiar but dangerous machine switched on. Online conspiracy culture. To be clear from the start, none of what followed came with proof, confirmation, or direct claims. What exploded wasn't evidence, it was interpretation. But interpretation, when repeated loudly enough, can feel like fact to people watching from the outside. It started with a repost. 50 Cent shared a clip, nothing new, nothing explosive on its own, but added a caption that made people pause. It referenced energy, power, and things people don't see until it's too late. He didn't name Jay-Z directly. He didn't have to. Fans connected the dots instantly because the internet has a long memory and a short fuse. Within minutes, comments were flooded with eye emojis, cryptic replies, and users saying things like, "Y'all catching this?" And "He knows something." That was all it took. Old footage resurfaced immediately. Award show speeches. Music video imagery. Lyrics that had already been analyzed 100 times suddenly took on new meaning. People slowed clips down frame by frame, circling hand gestures, stage designs, wardrobe choices. Symbols were identified or imagined, and once a symbol is named online, it becomes real to the people who want to believe it. And then the word started trending. Ritual. Not because anyone confirmed anything, but because it's one of the most powerful words in conspiracy culture. It suggests secrecy, control, hidden knowledge. And once that word enters the timeline, rational conversation usually collapses under fear and fascination. Threads popped up claiming Jay-Z had been hinting at dark practices for years. Others accused him of being part of secret elite circles. Some went even further, dragging in unrelated celebrities, ancient symbols, and decades-old rumors that had already been debunked countless times. The story didn't grow, it mutated. What made it worse was the timing. Jay-Z was silent, Beyoncé was silent, no response, no clarification, and in online conspiracy spaces, silence is never neutral. It's seen as confirmation, even though in reality it often means the opposite, refusing to legitimize baseless claims. But the internet doesn't care about reality when it's in narrative mode. People began claiming that 50 Cent had leaked something intentionally, that his post wasn't a joke, that it was a warning disguised as humor. Again, no evidence, just repetition. TikTok creators stitched his post with ominous music, dark filters, and captions like, "Wake up," and this goes deeper than music. Once visual storytelling takes over, logic struggles to keep up. Then came the insider whispers. Accounts with names like IndustriTruth and Hollywood Decoded claimed they had heard stories for years. None cited sources, none provided documents. But they spoke confidently, and confidence is contagious online. Comments filled with people saying, "I always knew something was off, and this explains everything." Everything being what exactly? That was never clear. But that didn't stop the theories from stacking. Some said Jay-Z's rise to power couldn't be natural. Others claimed success at that level always requires something dark. This kind of thinking isn't new. It's been used against powerful black artists for decades. But social media gives it speed and scale like never before. The tone turned darker when people began framing the rumors as danger. Words like exposed, evil, and sacrifice started appearing. That's where the conversation crossed from gossip into something more disturbing. Because now it wasn't just about speculation, it was about fear. And fear spreads faster than facts. A few celebrities posted vague messages about protecting energy and staying grounded. None referenced Jay-Z, none referenced 50 Cent. But conspiracy pages treated those posts like confirmation, screenshotting them with captions saying, "They're reacting." In reality, celebrities post vague inspirational messages every day. In conspiracy logic, timing equals guilt. Meanwhile, 50 Cent stayed exactly how he always is, joking, trolling, unbothered. That only added fuel. People said, he's laughing because he knows. Others said, he's baiting. The truth, that he might just be doing what he always does online, was the least exciting option, so it got ignored. What made this wave particularly intense was how it pulled in everything Jay-Z has ever been associated with. Business moves, art deals, marriages, friendships. People reframed normal industry behavior as evidence of hidden agendas. Theories contradicted each other constantly, but that didn't matter. Consistency isn't required in conspiracy culture, momentum is, and momentum was strong. Debunkers tried to step in, pointing out the lack of evidence, the recycled nature of the claims, the historical pattern of labeling successful black figures as sinister. They were drowned out almost instantly. In comment sections driven by fear and curiosity, skepticism looks like denial. By the end of the first day, the narrative had fully escaped its origin. It was no longer about a post. It was no longer about 50 Cent. It was no longer about anything verifiable. It had become a story people wanted to believe because it made the world feel less random, because it turned success into something explainable, because it offered villains instead of complexity. And Jay-Z's silence, intentional, legal, strategic, or simply dismissive, allowed the story to keep breathing. The dangerous part isn't that rumors exist. It's that once they reach this scale, they stop being rumors and start being treated like cultural truths by people who never ask for proof. And when a narrative gets this dark, it rarely stays contained. Because if the internet has decided someone is hiding something, it won't stop digging, even if there's nothing there to find. And that's when speculation turns into obsession. And obsession always demands a next chapter. As the rumors spread into their second wave, the conversation stopped pretending it was about evidence at all. What took over was pattern hunting, not facts, not confirmation, patterns. And once the internet decides to hunt patterns, everything becomes a clue whether it makes sense or not. This phase is where things got truly dark, not because of anything Jay-Z did, but because of what people projected onto him. Entire threads began cataloging moments from his career as if they were puzzle pieces. Award show staging, hand movements during performances, lyrics that referenced power, kingship, or legacy. Normal artistic symbolism was suddenly treated like hidden messages. People claimed to see meaning in lighting choices, camera angles, even clothing colors. None of it connected in any coherent way, but coherence wasn't the goal. Confirmation was, and confirmation came from repetition. Once a theory was repeated enough times, it started feeling known. TikTok videos with millions of views declared things confidently, often starting with, "I don't know if y'all noticed, but..." That phrase became a gateway. Everything that followed was speculation, framed as revelation. And viewers, especially younger ones unfamiliar with how conspiracy narratives evolve, absorbed it like fact. What made this wave especially dangerous was how it leaned into fear language. Creators began using phrases like ancient practices, elite circles, and hidden rituals without defining what they meant. The vagueness was intentional. It allowed viewers to fill in the blanks with their own anxieties. Once fear is activated, logic shuts down. People don't ask what ritual, where, or how. They just feel unsettled, and that feeling becomes proof. At the same time, screenshots of old quotes from 50 Cent were reposted with no context. Jokes, trolls, commentary taken from interviews years apart were stitched together as if they formed a single narrative. His history of trolling was ignored. His long-running public rivalry with Jay-Z was reframed as warning signs. Again, no new information, just recontextualization. And then came the insider accounts. Anonymous profiles claiming industry knowledge suddenly appeared in comment sections saying things like, "I can't say much, but people in the business know," or "This has been whispered about for years." No receipts, no timelines, no corroboration, but anonymity gave them an illusion of credibility. People believe secrets more readily when they're framed as dangerous to reveal. The algorithms rewarded it. The darker the claim, the more engagement it got. Videos questioning the rumors got buried. Videos amplifying them went viral. That imbalance made it feel like belief was the majority opinion, even though most viewers were just watching, not endorsing. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's silence continued and was interpreted in every possible way except the most obvious one. Some said silence meant guilt. Others said silence meant protection. A few said silence meant power. Very few acknowledged the reality that addressing baseless conspiracy theories often makes them worse. Public figures are advised not to legitimize false narratives, but conspiracy culture treats non-engagement as strategy, not dismissal. The conversation took a sharper turn when people began dragging Beyoncé into it. That's when it crossed a line. Normal artistic imagery from her performances was suddenly reframed as evidence. Feminine power themes were twisted into something sinister. This wasn't analysis, it was projection layered with misogyny and racial bias. The same symbolism praised in other artists was condemned here because of who was using it. Historians and cultural commentators tried to intervene, explaining how Black artists have long been targeted by narratives that paint success as unnatural or evil. Those voices struggled to gain traction. Fear travels faster than context. Then the harassment began. Fans reported seeing people flood unrelated posts with accusations. Comment sections turned hostile. Some users even claimed they were warning others. That language is especially dangerous because it frames rumor spreading as moral duty. Once people believe they're protecting others, they stop questioning themselves. Still, no proof. Not a single document, not a single verified source, not a single direct claim from anyone involved. Just a digital storm feeding itself. What's important to understand here is how entertainment conspiracy works. It doesn't need truth, it needs mystery. It thrives on ambiguity. And Jay-Z, as one of the most powerful and private figures in music, is the perfect target. Privacy gets recast as secrecy. Strategy gets recast as control. The darker the theory, the more satisfying it feels to those who already distrust power. 50 Cent's role continued to be exaggerated far beyond what actually happened. His single vague post was now being described as a leak, despite no information being leaked. Words matter, and in this case, they were being deliberately misused. But once that label stuck, it was impossible to undo. Even debunking content became twisted. Creators who tried to explain why these rumors were false were accused of protecting the industry. Skepticism was treated as complicity. That's the hallmark of conspiracy thinking, when disagreement is reframed as proof. At this point, the narrative had fully detached from reality. It wasn't about Jay-Z anymore. It wasn't about 50 Cent. It was about control, fear, and fascination. And the internet loves stories where powerful people are secretly dangerous. It simplifies the world. It gives chaos a villain. But the consequences of that kind of storytelling are real. It damages reputations. It fuels harassment. It reinforces harmful stereotypes. And once it reaches this stage, the people involved can't clear it up without making it worse. That's the trap. As the second wave settled, one thing became clear. This wasn't going to burn out on its own. The rumor machine had momentum. And momentum always looks for escalation. The question wasn't whether the story was true. It was whether the internet would ever care that it wasn't. By the time the third wave hit, the story had crossed into its most dangerous phase, normalization. The rumors were no longer being introduced as theories. They were being repeated as if everyone already understood them. Phrases like, "You know what they say about Jay," started appearing casually, without explanation, as if the accusations had always existed and simply needed to be remembered. That's how conspiracy narratives lock in. Not through proof, but through familiarity. What made this stage especially unsettling was how the conversation stopped asking questions altogether. Instead of "Is this real?" people began asking, "How deep does it go?" That shift matters, because once a claim is treated as a given, the burden of proof disappears. Everything becomes additive. Every unrelated coincidence becomes fuel. At the center of it all was still the same absence. No confirmation, no denial, no evidence, just an expanding echo chamber. Creators who had built followings around exposing Hollywood doubled down. Their videos grew longer, darker, and more theatrical. Red string graphics, shadowy background music, screenshots zoomed in so far they lost all context. Viewers weren't watching for information anymore. They were watching for adrenaline. Fear had become entertainment. And then something else happened. People started claiming they felt unsafe talking about it. That's when the story truly broke away from reality. Commenters warned each other to be careful, to watch what you say, as if discussing unproven rumors about a billionaire musician put them in danger. This illusion of threat is a key feature of conspiracy culture. It makes believers feel important, like they're part of a hidden truth others can't handle. But here's the contradiction no one wanted to address. If these supposed secrets were so powerful, why were they being discussed openly on TikTok and Twitter? No one had an answer. Instead, the narrative kept stretching. Some claimed Jay-Z's silence was intimidation. Others claimed it was legal maneuvering. A few even claimed it was proof of protection. Each explanation contradicted the others, but contradiction didn't slow anything down. Because logic wasn't driving the conversation anymore, emotion was. At the same time, people began questioning why these rumors keep resurfacing every few years. That's where the conversation got uncomfortable for a different reason. Cultural critics pointed out that nearly every Black artist who reaches a certain level of wealth and influence eventually faces the same accusations. Not incompetence, not corruption, darkness, evil, secret practices. As if success itself must be explained through something sinister. That pattern isn't new. It's been used for decades to undermine legitimacy. But conspiracy culture reframes that observation as deflection. Anyone who mentioned racial bias was accused of making excuses. Anyone who mentioned historical context was labeled brainwashed. The story didn't want nuance, it wanted a villain. And Jay-Z, by design, doesn't offer access. He doesn't overshare, he doesn't clap back, he doesn't explain himself to the internet. That distance, which once read as confidence, now got recast as secrecy. The same traits that helped him survive decades in the industry were now being used against him. Then came the final escalation tactic, foreshadowing. Accounts began hinting that more is coming, that the truth will surface, that people won't be ready. None of them ever followed up, because they didn't need to. The promise of revelation is more powerful than revelation itself. It keeps people watching, waiting, speculating. 50 Cent, ironically, faded from the story almost entirely at this point. The narrative no longer needed him. His post had done its job as a spark. The fire now burned independently. People still referenced him as the origin, but he wasn't adding anything. He didn't confirm, he didn't expand. He moved on, the internet didn't. That's when a few high-profile voices finally stepped in, not to defend Jay-Z directly, but to criticize the process. They warned about how quickly rumors can become truth online, how conspiracy content feeds on fear and dehumanizes its targets, how real people get hurt when speculation replaces responsibility. These posts were calmer, quieter, and far less viral, but they mattered, because they reminded people of something essential. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and there was none. No documents, no recordings, no witnesses willing to go on record, no verifiable sources. Just vibes, symbols, and assumptions. By now, the conversation had split cleanly into two groups. One group believed the rumors because they felt true, because they aligned with their distrust of power, because they explained a complex world in simple terms. The other group rejected the narrative entirely, seeing it as another cycle of online hysteria driven by algorithms, bias, and boredom. What neither group could deny was the damage. Jay-Z's name had been attached to words that don't wash off easily. Even if the rumors fade, and they will, traces of them will linger in comment sections, in jokes, in side remarks. That's the cost of viral conspiracy culture. Retractions don't travel as far as accusations, and that's why silence is often the only viable response. Because engaging would legitimize, denying would amplify, explaining would invite more questions. In a system designed to reward outrage, the most rational move often looks suspicious. As the story cooled, not because it was resolved, but because attention shifted, one truth remained. Nothing had been proven, but something had been exposed: the internet's appetite for darkness. Its willingness to believe the worst without asking why. Its comfort turning people into symbols instead of humans. This wasn't a revelation about Jay-Z, It was a revelation about us. About how quickly entertainment turns into paranoia. About how easily narratives detach from reality. About how power, privacy, and projection collide online. And the next time a vague post sparks a viral theory, this cycle will repeat with a new name, a new rumor, and the same absence of proof. Because in the age of algorithms, mystery is more profitable than truth. And once a story goes dark enough, people stop asking whether it's real. They just ask what comes next. If you made it this far, understand this. You didn't just watch a story unfold, you watched how narratives are born, weaponized, and normalized in real time. This is exactly how rumors turn into truth online, and why paying attention matters more than ever. If you believe conversations like this deserve critical thinking instead of blind panic, hit the like button right now. That single click pushes balanced discussion forward instead of letting fear-based storytelling dominate the timeline. Silence lets misinformation win. Now head straight to the comments and speak up. Do you think this situation proves how dangerous conspiracy culture has become? Or do you believe powerful figures invite speculation by staying silent? Do you see this as entertainment or as a warning sign about how fast narratives can spiral out of control? Your perspective is part of the conversation, and ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. And most importantly, subscribe immediately. Not because you want more drama, but because stories like this don't end cleanly. They evolve, resurface, and reshape public opinion when nobody's watching. If another post drops, another clip resurfaces, or another name gets pulled into the same cycle, you'll want to be here early, not catching up after the damage is done. This isn't about choosing sides, it's about recognizing patterns. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Stay informed, stay critical, and stay connected because the next viral storm is always closer than it looks.